still on the front line. He finally goes down on the field to this last Nexus, to the Nexus, nearly a flawless
The goal for me have always been to be top 2.
down, but there's still supers in the face.
This time, I think it's safe to say that our goal should be to be the number 1 already in Spring Split.
The top laner I look forward to face is Odane and Wonderwell. I think they are insanely strong in lane and they understand how to play around the map really well.
I've been with them for so long, since Challenger Series. We have won both European Split together.
My ultimate goal is, of course, to win Worlds. Nothing is impossible, so...
Last season we went to the final and we can do that again for sure, so that is our goal.
Either way, the groups really don't matter. I think we should just try to win every game.
Hello and welcome to day 1 of the 2017 EU LCS Spring Split. We're coming to you live from Berlin, Germany, as we launch another year of the best League of Legends Europe has to offer. Good evening, everyone. I'm Evie Schoks-de-Poortere, joined here at the first analyst desk of the year by Mitch Kreppel-Voorspoels and one of my favorite Welshmen, Andrew Verrius-Day. Welcome, gentlemen, and welcome back to the a little bit revamped studio.
Yes, I'm very happy to be back. We have brand new teams, we have a brand new format, and we have a brand new desk. So I'm excited to kick off the year.
Yeah, he said it all. I concur.
Not too much to add there. Well, then let's continue. This year, the EU LCS has taken on a brand new format. As said, 2 groups, best of 3s, and all on a single stream. Let's take a closer look.
Hello, esports fans. We here at the EU LCS are changing our format for 2017. How, you ask? Let's break it down. We're switching to best of 3s, which will be broadcast on a single stream. The 10 teams are split into 2 groups, determined by a group draft. The group draft took place before the spring split, and it worked like this. Since G2 and H2K gained the highest amount of championship points last year, they are seeds 1 and 2 respectively. Teams are drafted into groups by a snake draft, which means each team will pick another team to go in their opposing groups rather than their own. Think Nemesis draft, but for the LCS. Here are the results. Group A, G2 Esports, Fnatic, Misfits, Giants Gaming, and Roccat. And Group B, H2K, Splice, will retain the same format as previous EU LCS splits. 6 teams will qualify. Teams will be seeded by performance in their group. In 2017, it will be the bottom 2 EULCS teams that are sent to the relegation tournament. The top 2 performing teams from the Challenger Series will join them in a Swiss-style tournament bracket to determine who moves up and who moves down. And that's it for our changes in 2017. For more information, head to eu.lolesports.com and we'll see you on the Rift.
Well, fantastic breakdown there, and the takeaway is that there just has been a lot of changes. Again, some of these teams have now gone through best of ones and best of threes and now into best of threes. How do you think that's going to influence the league and the teams?
I'm just really happy the combination of the 10 ban system as well as the introduction of best of threes, I think is really going to create a lot of diverse champ selects overall, especially if you consider like a stronger team versus a slightly weaker team already 1-0 up. That leaves you with so much room for experimentation, especially in that second ban phase. We'll get more to that later when the casters truly explain the concept, but it definitely makes me excited for what we could see.
Yeah, and speaking of what we could see, it's the introduction of the added 10-man rosters that we're now adding to the European LCS. We see it in the likes of Fnatic. We also see it in teams like Vitality, who have that rotating jungler. There are a lot of variations that can now come into the Rift, and I'm excited to see what these different teams can bring out.
Definitely, we'll see how they evolve across the split, and we'll also be taking to the Rift on patches 7.1. And if you visit youtube.com/lolesports, you can also see which champions various things will be interesting in the new 10-ban meta. And something else is that Teemo is disabled, so we definitely won't be seeing him. It will be very interesting to see those picks, all the power picks. A lot of those might be off the table, and it'd be interesting to see what strategy teams go for. Banning out a certain role, banning so that they can craft a certain team comp. It's all up to be decided.
Yeah, currently it looks like you ban the OPs in the first 6 bans, and then you take a couple of strong picks, and then you ban out the counters in the second ban phase. That is truly what's going to make it so interesting, especially on that red side. Having the first pick after the ban phase, having the ability to counter ban after your last pick in the first phase. I mean, so many interesting possibilities.
And something that we were discussing earlier in the week, Crepo, was about how teams have only just scratched the surface of what's even possible with this pick and ban phase. So I'm really excited to see how it evolves throughout the season.
We will, and let's take a look at what is in store this week as we kick off week 1. Today we will have OG taking on H2K, followed by our match of the week, a best of 3 between G2 and Fnatic. And tomorrow, the EULCS newcomers Misfits will face off against Giants. What matchup do you guys have your eye on?
Personally, I'm actually really excited to see Unicorns of Love versus Vitality. I think that the Unicorns have had a strong showing, especially coming into the end of last year, and even though they've had a couple of roster shifts, I think expectations of them are still pretty high, whereas Vitality on paper look very promising, but they've looked very promising in the past. So we'll have to see how if they can meet these expectations that some people have put on them.
Yeah, UOL and Vitality for you. Which team do you have your eye on, Crepo?
I'll be looking just at H2K Splice because I'm casting with this new guy called Dracos.
Who's that?
Yeah, Sifa's gone, Dracos is here all of a sudden, so that should be fun. I like to see what happens just with some of these teams. I want to see them all play, but I want to see them all play more than once. I really want to see where predictions meet judgment somewhere in week 3, so we'll have to be patient.
We will, but for now, we're going to get right into our first match of the spring split in Group B by taking a look at the lineups. On the blue side, representing Origen, we have in the top lane Sartorius, in the jungle Wisdom, Nehun in the mid lane, Tabs at AD carry, at support Hiva, and Coach Leduc. Obviously, that roster is completely changed to what we saw in summer 2016. Is it better or is it worse?
It's nice that you asked the question. It is worse. It is much worse. Origen did not retain a single player. They lost the likes of Amazing and SOAS. Honestly, they've gathered maybe B-tier players, C-tier players, players that were formerly in Challenger, players that have tried and failed already. It doesn't look good for them. I would almost go as far to say that they're almost guaranteed to be in the relegation tournament, and I would not be surprised if they were replaced by either Schalke or PSG in summer.
I really want to echo that sentiment. This is an entire Challenger roster. They've all been playing in Challenger last split, and we've seen a lot of these guys playing for a long time, yet they haven't really achieved very much. So we'll have to see how well they stand against H2K.
I definitely appreciate your honesty and harshness here, but then the question, there have been teams in the past that were Challenger players and a lot of Challenger players that hadn't seen the LCS before. We have, of course, the success story of Splice last year. So why can it not work for Origen?
I mean, it definitely anything can work,
yes,
right? But that's why they're called like upset stories and underdog stories, is because everybody had a reasonable expectation for them to do not good, like to honestly play very poorly.
Yes.
That's what happens. Like, any critic out there does not expect much from Origen in this current fashion. The only thing that speaks well for Origen for me is that for the first time in a long period of time, they put infrastructure first. They have recruited Leduc or Ducky previously as their coach first, and then they started filling their players. But you can definitely see that these are players that went to Origen because, honestly, I don't think they got on the block for other teams in the LCS.
Well, we'll see what they can do. They have a big test up ahead. Their first opponents, and on the red side of the rift, are H2K within the top lane, Odoamne in the jungle, Jankos, mid lane, Febivin at AD carry, Nuclear at support, Che, and Coach Prowley. Jankos, Odoamne, and Prowley were on that roster beforehand as well. Febivin has returned, and they have a brand new bottom lane. What are we expecting from this H2K?
Well, this is the big question mark because Febivin, we're wondering how well he's going to fit into the new H2K roster because we have to remember that this guy is filling in for Ryu.
Yep.
H2K needed to find someone who would be able to fulfill the role that, and honestly, towards the end of the year, Ryu was doing a fantastic job, especially his performance at Worlds. And we're yet to see very much from Febivin. Right now, we're still wondering whether or not he can get back to that 2015 Febivin that we saw, or whether we're going to see more of that mediocre Fnatic Febivin that we saw throughout the 2016 season.
Yeah, as we see the teams there still setting up on stage and tweaking a couple of things. It is obviously their first time back on stage. It's been a while. Oops, did I have to plug in my mouse? Yes, it's necessary. I do want to jump on that point and hear your thoughts on the whole Febivin redemption story. You want to see him back in his 2015 form, maybe 2015 MSI form. Is that going to be the key to this entire roster?
I mean, everybody wants to see that, and even Febivin himself, he's come out with the whole self-improvement mantra and etc. But he seems very hungry to improve. He should be able to thrive in the H2K organization because they have Prowley, but they also have a wealth of support staff that they're introducing there. So they should be able to kind of help him build. They have people managing skills there alongside Prowley. So in that sense, I'm excited for what H2K could do. It is a big question mark, but as opposed to Origen, where they're having these 5 new players, right? You saw that in a Febivin who has been struggling, but you don't put the onus to lead on him. He can just follow Odoamne and Jankos, who already have a working system, and then their bot lane should be able to kind of thrive on their own as well, especially with the communication being all in Korean, at least out of the game for them.
Exactly that, Crepo. H2K have done a little bit of the opposite of what we see from Origen, where they already have this solid lineup to build the back of. You have Jankos, you have Odo, who have been so consistent throughout last year, and they can grow the talent, nurture it into what could be an incredibly strong H2K.
That's always a lot of like could be's and could haves. H2K could also fail, but again, but our expectation is that they do well. If you look at their bot lane, for people that are unfamiliar, Nuclear and Shay, 2 Korean players, 2 former LCK players. One came from Zbenu, and if you know Zbenu, they won 3 series, I think, over 2 splits. Yep. 1 in 17 and then 2 in 16 in the following split, and then they made their exit. But Nuclear was a decent to good AD carry on a bad team, pairing with Shay, who was always serviceable. He never really stood out on Jin Air, but he was, I think, acceptable. And if you look at Europe right now, the bot lanes don't look that strong. It's very hard to make a tier list of all the bot lanes and be like, damn, these top 3 guys, like they're gonna kick some ass. Like, it's really hard to make that statement. So I think H2K's bot lane should survive, and then we can really focus on the top side of the map.
And that is the most important thing for them as well. Not going to straight predictions, but in this OG versus H2K matchup, I think we all agree that H2K is the favorite. So where is there an in for OG? Or where is there maybe a part where H2K can falter, seeing how it is the first game of the split?
I'm excited to see how it evolves in the draft, depending on how quickly teams are prepared, because this is actually a very big change, and only recently have teams actually started to prepare for it. So how quickly they've been able to actually come up with solid strategies, I think is going to be a big determining factor in how this best of 3 plays out.
It could also be a matter of complacency. If you just came off the back of Worlds in like an Odoamne and a Jankos, H2K only started scrimming January 6th is what I believe they put out. So they had a very late start. The Origen players, they must be hungry. A lot of them are viewed as B-tier players, and honestly, not many people have high hopes. That could really drive the motivation of some of these players to over-prep, go the extra mile to really show up the first day, and that could happen. And that would be a pleasant upset. I don't think it's likely, but you asked for a way in. I think that's it for
sure.
Origen.
And it is a best of 3, so there can always be that odd game out where it doesn't go well. The players are just about getting into the lobby, so we'll be right there. And if we look at what we expect of H2K, that Jankos Odoamne train will be going hard, but wouldn't it be better for them to say, no, we're going to try and help the bottom lane out to see how that goes in this first game of the split?
I mean, the current metagame is still the bot lane 5-man fiesta.
Yes.
Where everybody teleports down, the jungler comes down, and everybody sieges that or dives that first turret for the demolition gold. However, that comes from a strong top lane anyways. If you have presence top lane, you can leverage that advantage and swing it to the bot lane. It is a whole macro game altogether, and I think H2K had those patterns figured out already. So they could just do that, and it must be pleasant for Nuclear and Shay. If you're laning pretty steady even, suddenly your mid laner teleports down, your top laner is walking down, and your jungler shows up. I think that could be the way for H2K.
Yeah, could very well be.
All right, well, we will see what happens. The players are now almost ready for picks and bans, so let's hand it over to the caster desk for game 1 of this best of 3 between Origen and H2K.
Thanks very much, Shocks. And hello, esports fans. I'm Devin Pyrotechnics, of course, joined here by the one, the only, my good buddy, James Stress O'Leary. Are you ready to open the LCS?
I'm ready. We got a new format. You got a new catchphrase. I'm ready for a new picks and bans system as well, because that is where I'm really looking for these first sets of drafts in the EU LCS to come alive, because we've seen it in LCK, we've seen it in LPL. I want to see what the Europeans have got in store for us.
Yeah, all the analysts, not you included, have been salivating over this new 10-ban system. We have a few games of LCK, a few games of LPL under our belts to kind of sate us for a minute. But no, we want some European action. We're going to get it very, very soon, I might add. But I'm really, really excited to see how the teams stack up. As they mentioned on the desk, Origen really have to temper expectations because these are a lot of players kind of getting thrown into the mix, but they could still surprise.
They can, and a lot of people will be perhaps frustrated that, you know, we're putting Origen so far down the list. This is a team that they made semifinals at Worlds back in 2015. Huge. I mean, you name it, they did it in Europe for a while, other than that elusive split championship. But they looked very good. And ever since, they've been losing players steadily. And we've ended up in a situation where we've got players right now who have even struggled to some extent in Challenger. Wisdom looked okay in Challenger. He looked pretty good on Misfits, but even struggled to hold his own seat against Llama Bear. So when you look at the Challenger lineups right now, I have very difficult times putting Origen even above that. So this needs to be a sum of the parts. We need something out of Nahun, out of the middle lane, to see something that we haven't really seen out of European mid laners in a little while. We need the strength there maybe for Origen to rally around that, because this is going to be a tough series if it goes as everybody predicts.
Yeah, and not only that, you know, looking at the schedule they have ahead of themselves, this is going to be one of the tougher games they'll have on their plates for a little while. Next week, of course, Unicorns and Vitality. You know, a bit of a toss-up there, and then they move on to Splice, who's going to be a very tough customer as well. I mean, there are no easy teams. This is the top tier of European competition, in all honesty, but still, you've got to fight to shut up the critics, to say, we are better than you think we are. It's kind of like show me mode now.
Jankos is, you know, waiting, ready to get into the Rift. I mean, speaking of show me, as you said, this is the game. If anybody pulls an upset, if you can take it off the group captain, of course, H2K, technically captain of the draft to begin with on that first round of the Snake draft.
Top 4 Worlds team, when you think about it. Yes, it's a new roster, okay, but they've retained a large amount of what made them successful. And, you know, we really got to talk about H2K's acquisitions, too, like coming back. Febivin, you know, kind of the prodigal son returns. He was gone as early as Prolly became the head coach of this squad all throughout their LCS tenure. And, you know, he's been up and down. I think that's a big question mark. Is Febivin going to be able to, you know, perform, maybe not get back to his 2015 form, but to really step it up from what we saw last year?
And it's interesting now because, I mean, H2K obviously will be relying on a fairly steady bot lane of Nuclear and Shay. I don't think Vander was anything against steadiness in the bottom lane, but certainly there were external factors when it came to their AD carry, where, you know, we had to swap around a couple of times during the season. So if H2K can hold with Nuclear and Shay, I predict that Nuclear and Shay will be able to contend with every other European bot lane we have. Ooh. Maybe not in week 1, but when we start seeing H2K versus G2 a couple of weeks into the split, I think they should be able to hold their own.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it can be a bit of a dream team. You have Che always had a reputation for being a very, very stable bottom lane player, and, you know, maybe he wouldn't win you the game, but he'd certainly never lose it for you. You almost could think of him as a slightly more mechanically skilled Vander. So, yeah, I mean, it should slot right in. Nuclear, on the other hand, I mean, this is a big shot. The guy's been on bad teams for his whole entire career.
Oh, there's always the argument of, you know, so X was on a team that let him down, never really matched up. I mean, we heard that about, you know, players like Froggen, who said everyone is like, Froggen's still as good as he ever was,
Froggen a super team, all right? And no excuses there.
Anyway.
But that's ancient history. We're getting into picks and bans. We are going straight for it, and wait for the slow zoom in.
The proof will be in the pudding for H2K, and let's take the tasty dessert that is 10-ban system. For those of you that haven't seen it yet, the first half of the draft remains exactly the same from splits gone by. 3 bans followed by 3 picks for each team, and then things will get a little crazy as we get into phase 2.
Yes, indeed. So the first one that we take off the board is Jace, banned by Origen on their side. It has been starting to show up quite a lot more on the 7.1 patch.
But it's not exactly one that I would expect to come right out of the gates. Champions across the world that have been banned out specifically or picked in every single game. Zyra, Rengar, Camille, Maokai, and Ryze are all 100% in LPL and LCK pick or ban. I expect to see at least 4 of them in this first phase of bans. 2 of them, well, one has gone already.
Boom.
LeBlanc also has a very high pick ban ratio right now.
Yeah, and Camille makes a whole lot of sense as well. I mean, it's a very, very powerful champion right now that everyone has been trying to get their hands on.
But it's on blue side Camille ban right now. I would have expected Origen, if they were prepared to take it out of the top or jungle, to have left it available for themselves. And with now another jungle hit coming out from this Rengar, Wisdom has to start digging a little deeper into his champion pool.
Well, we'll see if he can definitely stack up. I think it's an interesting point you talk about with Camille on the side of Origen, because it does seem to be a champion that is a little bit, I want to say, out of character for Sartorius, since he made his name on these like top AP tanky champions.
Absolutely. I don't really expect to see Sartorius taking a duelist matchup, and from the top lane to the mid lane, Cassiopeia, another pick that is seeing high prominence around the world. We've seen a lot of Syndra coming out as well. So Origen are setting themselves up perhaps to pick Ryze first as their first pick and not have too many answers left available in that mid lane. Orianna would be the one that H2K would probably want to pull against it.
But we have the Katarina ban, so the Syndra will get left up, and so will the Ryze. Curious to see if Origen wants to opt for their mid lane early on in this pick and ban phase. It could very well be the case, and is one of the champions we have seen Nahun play.
And at this point, we look over to the other side. Jungle, top lane, all have prominence, as does the support. Lee Sin would be a pick for Jankos. We have seen time and time again. If he wants to force Wisdom out of his comfort zone, an early and uncharacteristic Rek'Sai would be available, because that's likely what Wisdom will default to. We've seen it time and time again in Challenger. That is his go-to pick when it is available.
Yeah, interesting. I don't think... Oh, wait a minute. He's going to just lock the Kha'Zix with Lee Sin up, with Elise up. This is something special from H2K.
We've seen Kha'Zix a couple of times already on 7.1. It's as carry champion as you can get out of the jungle, and the Lee Sin matchup, if Wisdom wants it, is okay against Kha'Zix. We have seen it go both ways in the last few days, but as for this second pick now on the rotation from H2K, I'm wondering, where do they look at now? Do they flex a Karma? Do they pick up something that they can put in multiple positions?
Ah, well, they will take the Varus. I mean, that is technically your flex pick, even though we are more likely to see it in that AD carry position. So that's locked in, potentially for Nuclear, and the picks are back to Origen.
Yeah, we saw a couple of Varus games out in some of the series in LCK as well. Obviously, we've only got 2 days of play to go from. Did see it in that AD carry role. A couple of good catches in the KT series from the other day.
All right, so there is the Rek'Sai that we're predicting here. And the Ashe, another high-tier AD carry locked in for Tabs. So they're building themselves, you know, what appears to be a fairly solid front line, and they have a lot of engage on the side of Origen. How is H2K going to answer this?
Well, H2K right now have the pick of the litter as we round out phase 1 of the draft. We've seen a couple of crazy things come out from the support. The Malzahar hover will kind of tell you a lot, that it is at least in the minds of the players, but it's mid lane we go as we head into the new phase of the draft. Phase 2 has begun of the ban phase. Now each team will have 2 further bans before we finish out the draft.
Yep, you can think about it like the old pick and ban phase, but you have to slice it open, stick a couple more bans in there, and it's like a pick ban sandwich.
Now this Syndra pick, obviously going into the Ryze is an okay pick, will have the ability to snowball, and you can see there already prominence down into that bottom lane support role. It's one of the roles that is still available for H2K. Here come the target bans, and this would indicate a Zyra pickup coming out from Che. With the Misfortune off the table, that's one of the picks that does very well at punishing picks like Ashe, who have that fairly short range. Zyra can harass her down.
Also counts as a takeaway too. The Ashe Zyra lane has been one of the more impressive ones we've seen in recent times, and they won't have the chance to pick it. Do you think this is something that Origen themselves will now ban away?
If they don't, I would be incredibly surprised. They are focusing the top side of the map, though, with that Rumble. Don't want Odoamne having his hands on that from before. But Odoamne has a lot of options still available. The Poppy is up. The Maokai is still available as well.
Yeah, I think for Odo, this is going to be a fantastic season. I'm not just pulling that out of the fact that he's been one of the most consistent top laners we've had in EU. There's so many things he can play up in that top lane that we've seen continuing from Worlds all the way on. So Kennen's banned away. That's something else Origen don't want to have to deal with.
But that's, you know, a top lane pick that we haven't really seen too much of recently. I mean, people have been trying it a couple of other areas on the map, but I don't know whether you're that much more afraid of Odoamne's Kennen than you should be of Che's Zyra if he ends up picking it up here. Red side get the first pick in pick phase 2 as well here, and will have the last pick of the draft. There is the Zyra, and in my opinion, that is a real, you know, bad kind of setup from Origen to ban out the Kennen and leave the Zyra available. It's so strong in that bottom lane.
Yeah, it's been pretty consistently pick banned in the games we've seen on 7.1, and Che is a very reliable player. This is a super pokey bottom lane, and Tabs and Hiva are going to have to watch their backs. There's a Maokai locked in for Sartorius, is something we definitely could have predicted there. And of course, it will go back to Odoamne for the final. After this last pickup, we are still waiting on support.
And Hiva is one of the most aggressive supports we've had in European Challenger. Alistair, Thresh, supports that will try and get a fight started are exactly what he likes. His bread and butter was when Annie was such a big playmaker, but he's departing that completely. And now that either tells you Origen have somebody else to really call the shots and look for starting engagements, or Hiva's just playing out of his comfort zone.
Quite possibly, but maybe he's been practicing a little in the offseason, trying to get for those more pokey supports that he can play back a little bit. Ashe Karma is still a very powerful lane. This Shen, though, I would love this from Odoamne. It gets him into fights and into engagements a lot easier than just that teleport alone.
It's also a lane that is easily played into the Maokai as well. I mean, Maokai is not really going to pressure out the Shen at all. Shen should be able to sit there fairly comfortably, and look at the assassination potential that H2K have across the board. The Syndra, you've got the Kha'Zix to set it up as well, and you've got Shen to compensate for some of the squishiness perhaps that they'll have out of that jungle. So high damage coming out of H2K, whereas Origen, lower damage to begin this game. They're running for a later game composition with the Maokai, with the Rise. The same can be said from their bot lane as well. Good utility, great utility to get a fight started. But if H2K start getting ahead in this, if Forbiven gets kills, if Jankos gets kills, this game could get out of hand for Origen very quickly.
It could indeed. H2K can play very aggressive with the comp they build for themselves, and Origen certainly have to watch their backs as we tick down the final timer, setting those summoners up and everything. And it's been a while for both of them. For some of these players that haven't gotten too many chances to play on the LCS stage too, this has got to be a massive moment for them. Huge chip on the shoulder of Origen for an organizational standpoint as the coaches shake hands, walking off stage. Oh, it's going to be big.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a good game. I do wonder now, coming out of ban phase 2, how integral is that Zyra going to be? Because not many teams have let Zyra go all that way through the draft, through ban phase 2. So we'll have to see whether pushing Odoamne onto something like a Shen is enough, or whether it is too big of a mountain for Origen to climb above.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not going to be the most aggressive in lane unless he lands the taunt into the minions, but Maokai can deal with that just fine. We're going to focus so much on the bottom lane. We're going to focus on that mid. We're going to focus on the entire map, I think. And it sounds like everyone's pretty excited in the audience here. We're loading up onto the Rift for game number 1 of the European LCS Spring Split. And don't forget, you guys, online, keep your Twitters handy, because if you think Origen can take number 1, well, go ahead and hop on at OL Esports is the place. Hashtag OG winner of H2K is going to do it. Hashtag H2 what?
H2K win is what you want to hashtag for that one, as we are on the Rift. First best of 3 of the European LCS. First time we're loading up for 2017 here as well. I'm ready. So Origen, because they're trying to find Che to begin this game out. Maybe looking for Nuclear as well.
Oh boy.
Oh,
they're going to spot it.
They've been spotted.
Che knows exactly what's up right now. It was a nice try from Origen, but the cheese has been revealed.
It gives away now information on the top side of the map as well, because Jankos, they know they can go into the top side, get wards down, spot out the early jungle start. I'm not expecting Origen to pull anything particularly tricky, but it's Jankos that maybe wants to do it for himself. He's waiting for somebody to cross through here. Odoamne hasn't skilled yet. In case he just ends up taking taunt from this, catches Wisdom or potentially Nahian coming into the lane.
They're bringing 3 themselves. This could turn into an ugly level 1 if they want it.
We also saw, hang on, Wisdom.
Nahian's going to walk right into it. He has to burn his flash. Instant exhaust on the Jankos. They turn their attention to Wisdom, and in comes Febiven. Dark Sphere means the rest of Origen will not want to take that fight, and it ends up being a couple of summoners blown. from Origen's mid lane.
Jankos doesn't know he was on a ward there. It was placed around about the time the whole skirmish started happening, so Jankos is denying the blue take from Wisdom to try and get as much as he can from this setting, because Jankos was so far behind that his early clear would have been a little bit difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting start to this game, too, with both junglers being set behind. Odoamne and Satorius moving up towards the top side to take their places. Everything else as expected in the mid and on the bottom. Let's take a look at our summoners, or keystones, I should say, rather. A lot of tankiness on that side of Origen.
No surprise there when you've got the tanky style that Origen want to play, bringing 2 Courage of the Colossus to the game, and then Kha'Zix brings Thunderlords.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No,
Just
you want to do all the
you.
damage. Gone are the days of Strength of the Ages and every jungler taking it.
Yeah, exactly. But as we look on this bottom lane, a lot of people talking about Nuclear and Che, and now Tabs and Hiva. How are they going to match up against each other? As Jankos is very low. If they were in Invade, perhaps...
they're pinging him too.
Yeah, they know he's seemingly quite low. They're expecting him to be there, but shouldn't be too detrimental. I'm expecting Nuclear and Che to be able to hold their own and go even against every bot lane that we've got and win some of the matchups they have against the bottom tier teams. Very easily, very comfortable.
Yeah. On Origen's side, Tabs and Hiva, I mean, you look at this pair on paper, and they're definitely not lacking too much for experience. Hiva, having been in the challenger scene for a long, long time, and even if he has the tendency to be one of the more blindly aggressive supports, he still can get results done. Tabs has had a pedigree, but we just haven't seen much out of him lately, and you know, they kind of have to step up and prove that they still can play.
Yeah, I mean, Tabs, we saw him in Challenger for a while, and honestly was kind of struggling even to maintain a top Challenger AD carry status. He had a lot of good games, but you know, when you started seeing players like Hans Sama come in, that everybody was making a lot of noise about, Tabs seemingly started to get left behind, and we'll see if he gets left behind on this, because he's actually running up all the way towards Jankos now. I think H2K kind of have an inkling it's happening. When the whole bot lane disappears, you kind of have to wonder.
Yeah, Wisdom's coming too here. I mean, that was all because of the ward that Hiva placed early on. Jankos knows he's going to get the smite down, so they really can't get much done and just, in fact, lose out a little bit of lane presence here. Wisdom is going to get his Skull of Crab clear on down towards the bottom side, but a lot of jungler focus has been in this lane right now. And it's a curious thing to see if that continues.
A good amount of help from Hiva as well, warding in the lower side jungle, so they knew exactly where Jankos was. They could have predicted it pretty much from his pathing. Anyway, Jankos now, they know where Wisdom is. He will get spotted out on some of this vision here, and Wisdom may be looking to turn, but Che has got him boxed in.
Oh boy, ooh, it avoids the grasping roots. Takes a pot shot on the back half, and they place the ward not quite in the brush, but Wisdom sneaks out with his life. A lot of near misses to start this game off. We're only 4.5 in.
Yeah, we are only 4.5 in. You know, we've seen Nathan already back away from that mid lane, pick himself up a tier of the Goddess as well, which kind of forced Febivan to back away and get himself Lost Chapter, pick up a control ward for some extra vision control. Satorius, he's on Maokai. This is a comfortable one for him. He's able to teleport back up to top.
Yeah, no problem for Satorius. There's another player that is you know, coming in and having his LCS start, but we'll talk about that a little bit later as Wisdom is on the gank path. They can't get any CC lockdown, so Nuclear and Che have backed off to safety once again.
Flash for flash in the bot lane. Hiva flashed on Che, which forced him to flash in response, otherwise it would have locked him down.
It's pretty flashy.
So, a little bit more emphasis on the bottom lane than I think H2K would have liked right now, but when you look at it, it's 2 tanks in the top lane. It's Syndra and Ryze in the mid lane, who, until Syndra hits 6, isn't really going to be able to do too much against Ryze, and even then he's Ryze, so kind of survives most things as well. H2K would like to divert attention a little further away from that bot lane for now, though.
Ooh, Satorius is going to get the ward on, spot Jankos up towards top side. That's a question we had to ask ourselves quite a lot coming into this week, prepping for it all. Where was H2K going to focus their jungle attention? With Febivan now occupying the mid lane, a role that previous mid laner Ryu had a lot of attention out of him. Would that translate to Odoamne, or would that instead be transferred down towards bottom? So far, it has seemed to be the bot, not by their own choice.
Exactly. This game is very matchup specific as well. Not a lot you can do for Shen Maokai in the top lane for a while.
No, in fact, Shen comes to you.
Well, yeah, Shen can come to you, and he can now as well. Odoamne just hit 6. Important timing from Satorius using his TP into the lane allows Odoamne to use his in response and have Stand United available. This might be the opportunity that H2K over the next minute or so have to really blow this game wide open. If everybody comes down to the bottom lane again, Shen will be able to get there. Maokai won't.
Yeah, level 6, very important when you're dealing with a Shen. And obviously, ultimates are pretty impactful for most champions in the game. Nonetheless, it's a big deal. Satorius is still sitting on 5, of course, even if he could teleport into the action. You can see the bot lane's backing away down bottom, and Jankos is actually going to go a roaming.
And look at this. This is because Nahun backed away. This is his second recall already from mid lane, allows Jankos to move into the enemy jungle, clear out a control ward. He sees that Wisdom is now very low, and Jankos, only level 4, does have a disadvantage, but knows that at least for the first portion of that, Febiven would have been able to roam and get there quicker than Nahun will. That level 1 ult is still fairly low range on Ryze, so didn't want to get caught out in a situation where he had to try and save Wisdom.
Nahun definitely having a lot to prove here. This is a guy we've only seen in Korean Challenger, and he didn't manage to win a game. Excuse me, LSPL.
This is interesting. Nuclear and Shay coming all the way across from bottom lane, diverting their attention through. Normally you just see them come back down through the lane. The wave is kind of pushing away from them, and Tabs is pushing it back out. So maybe they were looking to see if they could make a play, catch somebody out in the jungle, but nobody was there.
There's been a huge focus on getting early vision in the oddest
it's
of places. As they
time.
pop over. Oh boy,
Tabs
and Hiva, they don't see this.
Does he know? Oh, if Hiva goes toward, this will be so bad.
And
they lock him down.
Caught him, locked him in. Goes Jankos. Hiva is down. First blood for the First Blood King.
Oh, that couldn't have gone much better for H2K. The 3-man blasting plant acrobatics show over the wall into the First Blood. And Jankos continues his moniker of being the First Blood King. This guy truly is unstoppable when you start looking at these early game skirmishes. You can see last season, 40 First Bloods that he participated in. Insane.
Yeah, this guy is something else. And now you can see why they prioritize the Kha'Zix pickup over something like a Lee Sin. Already starting off to an excellent 1-4. Let's take this one more time. Just take it in.
Olympic gold goes to H2K on the trio gymnastics. And Hiva doesn't really get too much in the way of any help from the judges.
I mean, that just feels bad, man. Unfortunately, still didn't have his flash up and available. The exhaust, he knew he was dead. Not much you can do there, so Jankos is able to pick himself up, his first kill of the game. Let's check in how the CS is going, though, because in this bottom lane, it actually has been Tabs outdoing Nuclear in that regard. Can shoot a few more arrows at once. Everything else has been fairly even. I mean, the jungle looked like it was going to be a bit rough of a start for Jankos, but obviously he's made up quite a lot for that. And H2K, they have a slim lead thanks to that First Blood, but it's only about 300 gold, so in 9 minutes, doesn't mean too much.
It's about as good as you're going to get without a significant fight in the bottom side. Just the one catch, really well worked by H2K. A little bit fortunate on their side, knowing that Hiva, after his recall, is going to come out to the river and ward it. I mean, that's not a play that is going to work every time that you 3-man blast plant over the wall. So it certainly looks very, very skillful of H2K to pick up, and is a good way of starting this game out for themselves.
They've had Tabs on Wisdom, pardon the pun, pretty much consistently, though, throughout this game, because they keep on moving into that jungle when he's occupied elsewhere. And you can see where the vision focus is. Wisdom up on the top side has been placing some wards. The rest of Origen have followed suit. They have that side of the river, but the Dragon side, it's all H2K.
Yeah, Dragon side is H2K. There are a couple of wards still around that will deny H2K from doing anything particularly strong too early on. Interesting as Wisdom heads into the bottom lane.
Oh, the Ash Arrow lands. Nuclear, the flash in. That might have been overkill there, and Wisdom picks up a kill for himself.
And you could see there wouldn't really have been any response from Odo Amne there, because he's right next to Sartorius in the top side. A lot of people will be questioning, why was there no shield, no summoners used? As soon as that arrow hits, Nuclear is dead, dead, dead in that bottom lane. So they save the summoners for another day.
Yeah, Nahun now is going to be in a 1v2 situation. Powers unleashed. Jankos actually bails out. He was feeling the heat of the tower as Nahun melted through the minion wave.
Febiven doesn't have damage yet. Look at his boots. They're Mercury treads as a first buy on Syndra, wanting to survive through some of the damage that Ryze has. Typically, Ryze wants to scale, but he has a fair amount of damage at the same time. Febiven being less about carrying for the team for himself now, being more about setting up fights later. And speaking of setting up fights, gets the knock-up, arrow hits, no response from H2K. Great response in the bottom lane out of Origen.
Yeah, it was well played from them. They did invest 2 flashes to make it happen. I like the one from Wisdom. I don't know if the one from Hiva was 100% necessary, to be completely honest, but it does fit his MO. If there's somebody to kill, he's going in.
He's aggressive. The number of times I've seen him Q-flash people on Alistair, again and again and again, just in the laning phase, and get kills in Challenger is insane. However, it doesn't work so much in the LCS.
Or on
and that's
Karma.
where I want to see Hiva kind of round himself out. Yeah, exactly. Karma as well.
I mean, sometimes there's some habits that just die hard. Now, H2K, they've sent Che and Jankos kind of a roaming into this jungle to clear some wards out, place a few of their own. They are unfortunately spotted near the red pit, but Wisdom is nowhere to be found. He's up in top side. He's getting his counter jungle on, and there's just a forest of wards here now towards this bottom side. We could be in for, well, I believe it was called a fiesta in the bot lane.
Yeah, it might end up being a bit of a fiesta. I mean, you can see the evolved claws on Jankos.
Febiven wasn't spotted. Well, now they see Jankos. They know what's up.
Obviously, Q evolution is the one that everybody's been going to first as, you know, pick up on the Kha'Zix.
Yeah, that damage.
Gives you that cooldown on the Q decrease when you hit an isolated target. So you find somebody one-on-one and suddenly they die. Wonder where half their health went.
Just about. Nuclear and Che have been keeping Kiva and Tabs penned up in this bottom side. And even though the dive was sniffed out, still keeping the pressure on. Lost a little bit of farm. Tabs has still kept himself ahead of that. However, gold game is in Origen's favor overall, thanks to the equalizing kill that Wisdom was bringing. Nobody really interested in the Dragon either, and there's no rush. It is only a Cloud Drake. Not quite as critical as something like a Mountain or an Infernal. So we could be in for a bit longer of a laning phase. Nahun, however, is going to have to go on the run. Rune Prison, Febiven unleashes the power. He's down to low health, but he's got both summoners available. Flashes over, followed by Jankos. Party Portal, he can't take it. Febiven claims him.
Claims the kill. It took a little longer because of the lack of damage for now from Febiven, but that kill will do it for him. Will allow him to continue his itemization now towards a little bit more damage, and you can see that just the Kha'Zix, the Syndra, that potential is enough. Ultimate was used by Nuclear just to try and get Tabs out of the lane.
Yeah, going back to that mid, this is what H2K's comp is built to do. You were saying it yourself in champion selection. They can get the assassinations off. If they can get the pressure in the early game, they can snowball their lead. But this is not a snowball.
Right.
This is a dead even game at 13 minutes. Origen should be happy with this.
Origen, considering their composition, will be very happy with this. When you look at it, they've got a Maokai who needs a little bit of extra time, needs that first item with those boots, has the Rise, who is, you know, working his way towards his core. This is an acceptable position for Origen to be in for themselves. When they look at this game plan, what do we need? This is exactly it. Sure, they'd love to be ahead, but this is not a worry now for Origen.
Yeah, I do like that Wisdom took the more aggressive track and kind of helped equalize a little bit on the gold on bottom. They didn't just sit back, play the passive game. As Che, speaking of sitting back, he can't get too comfortable there. He got fired on, a lot of damage being dealt to him, and still a problem with Zyra is her relative squishiness to a lot of other supports.
But you know what is also good for Zyra? It's when she can come over with a jungler and do Dragon. Two people, because your plants tank it up for so long, which is something that Origen have to be careful of. With this push now in the bottom lane, you can see Hiva recalled as well. There is this opening now for H2K to go back into the lower jungle. This is the third or fourth time we've seen this. Every time Hiva backs away, H2K go into the jungle, they get vision control, they get wards, and they try and take away as many of the camps as they can.
There's a difference this time, though. Wisdom is actually here. Jankos is going to smite that real quick. He's got the blast plant. He's out. Jankos manages a nice little steal away from Wisdom. Won't have access to his red buff for a little while longer.
Was a close one. Wisdom was there. Hiva's going to check the brush this time. Didn't quite get a read on exactly how far away Jankos went, so didn't want to end up caught out for a second time. That was the first blood in this game, of course. H2K jumping the wall and getting the 3 versus 1 on Hiva.
They're living in this jungle right now. Jankos and Febiven are keeping the pressure on, dragging Nahun out of lane as well, who just wants to sit there and scale and farm up as best he can. Febiven will soon have a little bit more damage. He has the Morellonomicon completed for himself. But you're right, the boots, the survivability has been kind of in the back of his mind, that he doesn't have to be this big carry that we saw when he made a name for himself on 2015's Fnatic.
Exactly, and I think when he looks around, he sees Odoamne, he sees Jankos, Nuclear, Che, he's like, oh, okay, maybe I don't need to carry every single game. So it might be a slight mindset change. I mean, it's not too uncharacteristic to pick up the Merc Treads as well. We'll either see that or, you know, the Sork boots come through. But H2K right now are in a situation where they're trying to extend any kind of a lead they can over Origen, because Syndra and Kha'Zix, if they don't get rolling, could very well get heavily outdamaged by this Rise and Ashe later into the game.
They're going to try to get rolling. I mean, you see that hawk shot go, and all of a sudden there's a Kha'Zix there. Oh, of course there's a Kha'Zix there. He's not left the entire time. This is going to be the first Tower Blood. They finally finished the job, and you could see Wisdom and Nahun were looking to try and stop that, but they were just too late.
And that's important, because Nuclear had been pushing that out again and again, and we mentioned them going into the jungle, putting down vision control, but the true success of pushing the lane out like that is getting that tower first blood on the bottom side. This unlocks a lot of the rest of the map. You'll see Nuclear likely go up towards the top lane or the mid lane right now, and then Odoamne will change around and end up where he's needed on the map. Keep in mind, both teleports available. Neither top laner has used them in an aggressive stance yet, but look at it, Sartorius, first item has been completed. He's getting towards the time where he wants to be involved in a fight.
Has plenty of sustain available for himself as well. Well, Sartorius hasn't had too much trouble farming. Obviously, it's to be expected against something like a Shen who can't really stop you from doing it. But this is why Maokai has just been so heavily picked on 7.1. He just does everything very, very well, even compared to some of his other, top-tier level tanks. But I really like this Shen pickup. If H2K can start utilizing that Stand United, if they can force the issue a little bit more, it's harder to do in a long lane down bottom, but maybe now's the time to try and focus on Nahun and shut him down.
Yeah, if they can shut Nahun out of the game, that would go a long way. The problem is he's at 170 CS at 17 minutes, but here they try.
Yeah, okay, Exhaust is on, and Febiven thinks better of it this time. It does seem like they keep thinking they can go, but they pull the trigger a little slow.
I mean, at this point, Ryze, 170 farm, Rod of Ages completed with a Negatron Cloak and Mercury Treads as well. Syndra that started Merc Treads and only has a Morellinomicon is never going to get that from Jankos and the rest of the team. Now the rest of the team are around. They can't quite land the damage down through the bottom side jungle, so H2K having a little trouble getting a lot of their damage into useful positions.
You can see that they really want to try to pick up this Cloud Drake, a little bit of extra speed to help them get in position a little faster, but OG are wise to this. They know there's nothing else for them to take on the bottom side of the map right now. They move in, they throw the wards down inside the pit, just outside the pit, and it's frustrating to watch for H2K. They can't really get what they need to do done, and they know there's a timer on this game.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I mean, a lot of analysts and coaches will probably look at this and say, Maokai and Ryze, how did you get such a ticking time bomb composition that at one point Maokai and Ryze will 2v5 the entire enemy team as long as somebody sets them up for a fight? Like, this is the kind of composition that we very rarely see the two champions ever get through together. So Origen from the draft, I was questioning the Zyra, perhaps it's H2K questioning this top and mid lane allowance that gets through that we really should be looking at. Because this Maokai came out late, remember, it was in phase 2 of the picks.
Absolutely. And, I mean, so was the Zyra, but it really was a massive surprise towards the back half of that. And teams are still adjusting to this new pick ban format. Jankos is coming out of there. Ooh, the taunt does not land onto Sartorius, who plays it safe. Meanwhile, Wisdom will be up there in the top and getting a little bit of farm for himself. Che trying to dodge away. The Dragon will do a little bit more damage to him. But Origen are in a place that they really like. And to be honest, to come in with expectations of being one of the last place teams in your group, if not the entire LCS, to be able to hold out like this against one of the best teams from last year is impressive.
And at this point, we've got to look at how the pace of the game is being affected by the neutral objectives available. Cloud Drake as a priority for H2K is fairly low. If this was an Infernal or a Mountain, they would probably have rushed to get that significantly earlier with the pressure they were creating in the bot lane. The fact that it's Cloud Drake means that Drake is just sat there, and Jankos is just trying to farm, and he's trying to out-farm a Rek'Sai who is faster around the map to get from camp to camp. And this Rek'Sai is getting particularly strong as well. You can see Wisdom very heavily farmed right now. A 125 to 78 is a fair disparity. It doesn't actually end up with too much gold, but the Rek'Sai herself is fairly healthy in the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big thing for Origen that they haven't been too far set back by a couple of the early plays that H2K were able to pull. And they're running out of options. They really are. The Essence Reaver's complete now on Nuclear, so he has a little bit more to work with in terms of CDR, but they need to get in the mid lane and start trying to shut down Nahun if they really want to get much done, but they need AD to do it. With all that MR he's been stacking up, it is really hard, as you said, for Febiven to get involved and kill him.
And not only that, like Nahun just walks up to the wave, pushes it out, walks away. It doesn't really matter to him that people are trying to dive him because he'll survive that. Wisdom trades with Jankos.
Yeah, he does. Now Wisdom is going to just barely make it out alive. Powers unleashed on Hiva, and Febiven gets a consolation prize. Now they're on to mid lane, and let's see if they have the minions to do it. It doesn't look like it.
H2K stretching themselves to try and get as much damage down as they can. Jankos will try and heal back up from his Void Spikes on the Rift Scuttler and then take the fruit as well so that he's healthy enough. But that was hard-worked pick onto Hiva. Hiva opened himself up, and of course Feberman now with a Void Staff on top of it, looking to just smash through. Here comes Jankos from the side.
Chains, and they're bringing Shen to the party. Nehun, this is who they wanted. Odo gets the taunt. Odo finishes the kill. Che tanking towers. Satorius twisted advance into Nuclear. They want to push him off this tower. Nuclear is not going to live, or is he? Flashing. Satorius picking up the kill, and Odo trying to tank the line, but he finds himself in between all the remaining members of Origen, and they're firing him down. Chains on. Hiva's there. The rest of the team finishes him. Che and Febevin limping back as Jankos was way out of there. That did not go the way H2K wanted on the back half. It is a 1-for-2 trade against them.
H2K running out of damage before Satorius really appears, and you can see that Maokai is the difference maker in this. The TP in, now Origen are the ones that, despite having their tower sieged for a little while, are the ones that are taking mid-tower first. This is a real misplay out of H2K to stick around in the mid lane and allow themselves to get TP'd on by Satorius. Satorius shows up, deals with everything they needed to.
Just about dead even on the gold right now as they polish off that tower to equalize 22 minutes into this game. And if you're H2K, you got to be thinking, what the hell happened?
I mean, Jankos was expecting to trade with Wisdom and doesn't realize that Wisdom is at least even on him here. And at this point, Feberman couldn't get quite around the corner, finally lands the damage down onto Hiva and takes him out. But Hiva joins into the second phase of this fight. This is how long this fight actually ended up going for, because the wave clear from Tabs, from Nation, is significant enough to force this phase to come too late. H2K push up, Jankos tries the submarine, they land the Chains of Corruption, but Nation survives for so long. Again, this Rise isn't so weak that you can just dive him, and in comes Satorius. 2v4 with Wisdom for a very long time in this, but the health bars on H2K are already chunked down. That Satorius walks into the fight, says, hey, I'm Maokai, you're never going to be able to deal with me. And Origen end up coming out so far ahead from that play, at least when you look at it in an isolated chamber. They got the tower from mid lane.
Yep, and H2K looking to try and answer on the mid. We'll take a look at the damage that was dealt in the last fight. You can see the Kha'Zix just didn't have an impact, and that was because he was tanking tower. Every time you saw him in the replays trying to go on Wisdom again, they just weren't able to get involved after that initial delivery of Odo Omne.
The same could be said for Nation. 0 damage in that fight.
Well, he died really early, to be fair.
He was the one that got dived initially on that play. It was Hiva died first into Nation in the second phase. So if that Rise is able to get damage off, we've seen it start to be significant already. So if that fight happens again and Nation is able to get anything off, it's a little worrying for H2K.
I think it's fair to say it's a lot worrying at this point. 24 minutes into this game, and we talked about the ticking timer, and you have to think on Origen's side, they have so much power, and they have been playing pretty impressively together. Few mistakes here and there. Hiva going a little aggressive. Okay, that's what he does, we know. Wisdom has been playing it just fine. He's been escaping with his life when it's come down to it. He's picked back up the early farm game. Satorius has done exactly what he needed to. I mean, this does not quite look like the crew of B-tier players that they've been billed as.
For now, yeah, that's fair to say. They're hanging with H2K fairly well in this part of the game. I think H2K right now, their comp is hindering themselves a little bit. They should, in their minds, oh, Che.
Oh boy, okay, so Che's got the shields on. Nahun's gonna have to run out of there. Wisdom is gonna try to finish, but the chains were on him. Origen got a little hyphy, and H2K punished there.
Well, you had to curse it, Pyra. Speaking about Origen not making mistakes,
time, right?
H2K, they were on the top side of the map, and from what looked like a bad situation, Satorius, with a little bit of an error that we've seen time and time again from Challenger players, bot side, staying there with no TP. This Baron, Jankos is low, he got it.
Oh, he's going to be secured. Okay, there was no smite fight possibility, but they're blinking health bars. Still, H2K sensed a moment of weakness to be able to collapse on and therefore grab themselves a Baron. That's a big swing in their favor and a big mistake out of Origen that, you know, moves the gold 3K in H2K's direction.
It's a two-part mistake. Satorius should not be showing bot side with no teleport when you know he TP'd and it's on cooldown. And at the same time, Origen shouldn't be pushing forward with Wisdom on the top side of the map when Satorius is bot side with no TP. Like, that is a fairly easy mistake that a lot of teams will make, and a team like H2K seemingly will punish it time and time again.
Yeah, well, there's definitely something to be said for, you know, teams that have a little bit of anti-momentum when they get a little bit ahead, when they get a lot ahead and they think, ah, it's okay, we're in the lead right now, we're cruising to a victory. You lose your head sometimes, and that's just not the way to play a game. So unfortunately, for OG. H2K were able to punish that in a big, big way, and now they're getting themselves a 1-3-1 on. Well, more of a 4-1 because the rest of H2K have come up topside. Hawkshot's going to spot Jankos and Che, but this tower is going to be polished off real soon as Nuclear is hurting the Baron and powered minions into it.
Odo's pushing bot side out as well, holding Sartorius down there. And H2K, from what looked like a rough position from them, Origen were in a good spot. Now H2K have turned the entire game around. This is the biggest difference between the teams we've seen all game long, and this Baron is going to crack open the Origen outer towers at least.
Yep, this will be number 4 for them, and you can still see Odoamne trying to peck away at the one in the bottom lane, so there really isn't a whole lot left here. Origen still trying to defend now. The big question for H2K is this lead that they built themselves now going to be enough for them to close it out?
It needs to be more. They need more from this Baron buff. They need a really large advantage for themselves to offset the fact that Maokai and Ryze, oh wow, Hiva.
Yep, they go right for him. They know it's the easiest target, and Jankos unfortunately taking tower shots, dodging away the Ash Arrow, but Wisdom shuts him down with a flash on Burrow. And now Che and Nuclear and Febivin trying to make the most of this, finishing off the tower, unleashing the power, and they got the chains on Nahun. Can they get him here? He's just able to flash away into tower range. Wisdom body blocking everything they can, but this is going to be an inhibitor turret here. Tabs trying to keep them off it. Sartorius gonna twist it advance in, but they just keep pushing for the tower. It doesn't even matter. Sartorius might not die, but they can't defend, so another tower taken. H2K swings it 6-1 now.
And H2K in the second phase of that fight did not care about Sartorius and Tabs alone. They take down that tower. Had Nahun been there, it would have been a different story, but this was the start. Che over the wall, catches out Hiva. Again, that's the kind of position you have to be careful of around Azira. She will use the roots over the wall. Tabs doesn't quite hit the arrow, but it didn't really matter as Jankos fell anyway, and in phase 2, Nahun was caught out by Nuclear's ult, chipped down, forced back to the base, and the tower died before he could realm warp his way back into the fight.
Yeah, looked like Sartorius was able to stop Odoamne from channeling his Stand United 100% though, and that allowed them to shut down Jankos. So they got a little bit back for it. Hiva, oh boy. Okay, gotta be careful there. Odoamne, Nahun both here. The flash taunt lands at the last possible second, and even with the shields, they were nearly polished off. Clutch realm warp out of Nahun.
Yeah, gone from that skirmish, but gone is the ultimate from Nahun that would take Sartorius and Ryze into the back lane, the back side of the fight at least. We've seen it happen a couple of times. Febivin knows that somebody's around as Wisdom was in the bush. So this again is H2K trying to force them back. Odoamne will have his ultimate available soon. His teleport is up as well. And a second Dragon of the game has been started by H2K. It's a decent lead for themselves right now after the Baron buff has expired. It's not enough to say this game is done and dusted. This Ryze, this Maokai combination with the Rek'Sai and the engaged potential coming from Origen still has a lot of potency as we head later and later into this game.
But talking about potency, we really have to look to Febivin now because it looked like he was going to take a much more supporting role in this game. Well, I mean, he's sitting himself at a pretty 3 items with 3-0-2 on the board, so this is already starting to look a lot better for the H2K mid laner.
Oh, it's looking better, especially considering the... oh, hang on, Nuclear goes in.
Ooh, that's a swing and a miss, but Jankos comes in with a submarine. They've invested heavily to take down Tabs. They get him, but there's no minions here to push. There may be a timing window here that Origen can push with, but H2K are shoving their weight around.
Yeah, Origen are actually pinging mid tower, trying to trade mid inner in exchange, as Nahun will be able to clear this wave fairly quickly.
They haven't backed yet. I mean, it's only Jankos that's gone back now. Can he defend here?
H2K will be able to push the inhibitor tower way faster if Origen don't react in that mid lane.
Oh man,
they're still late to this. Odo can tank this up for a while.
This was a big mistake. Origen got cold feet at the last moment, and now they lose not only 1, but 2 towers here. Wisdom getting taunted, getting knocked back. The big Zyra ultimate, the big one out of Febivin. Wisdom inches away right now from death.
Here comes
and there's
Nahun.
an open Nexus or inhibitor, I should say. Nahun coming in, but they got the jump on him. They've taken him down. Odoamne with the finisher. Nuclear, he should fall here, but Sartorius might just trade his life. The Guardian Angel is popped, and he's gonna go down a second time. Wisdom, Hiva, Tabs trying to get involved, but they just can't do a thing. Jankos hopping over, finding Wisdom, gone in Viz, and they're right back on to the inhibitor, and there's an open one in mid.
A very precarious situation out of H2K in that bot side. As Rise was coming down, they had to turn on him, and turn on him they did. Stun him down from Featherhooven, clean out the rest of his health bar, and Nahun could not survive. And that has really been the story of this game. At these pivotal moments, H2K have found Nahun and taken him out of fights before he's been able to wreck the H2K backline.
Let's take a look at how it all began. Again, we knew Nahun was on the way, but it was just too late.
It's a matter of time here. You just see him realm walk down into the lower side of the jungle, and H2K, look at how low their health bars are. They force out early heals, everything to try and keep Nahun down. The stun lands, they have the control ward to see him coming, and everything connected out of H2K that they needed it to on Rise. Otherwise, that was a real tough spot to get themselves out of. They take out Maokai to finish it off after the Guardian Angel, and now H2K are in a dominant position.
Yeah, Jankos himself is finding a lot of solace in the fact that he is just nice and fed this time around, has a bit more survivability. The Maw and Malmortius, he has the Edge of Night for himself. The assassination potential has turned into full-on blow teams up potential for this entire squad. This is looking really good if H2K can keep the pressure on.
And in the last 32 minutes of gameplay, we've talked about Forbidden low damage early, Rise would have late game damage, everything should be all right for Origen if they get to this stage. Well, Febiven has done over 20,000 damage, Nahun has barely done 6,000 damage in 32 minutes of play as Rise.
Oh no.
Typically, Rise starts putting out monster numbers.
Yeah, well, it's also going to be Kha'Zix putting out monster numbers right now as he does get stopped up for just a second. Ash Arrow goes, but they've caught Nahun once again. Power's unleashed on him. They can't get the stun out. Origen might just be able to get back, but look at the bottom. Odoamne is pushing on Nexus turrets.
Not only that, they force the Rise out of the fight as well and turn for the Baron. Odoamne, yes, he's creating presence, but Nahun again is not getting damage out in any of these fights. He is unable to stay alive long enough to turn the damage back around.
Yeah. Big difference between these two mid laners, and a lot of experience on Febiven's side definitely coming to play for him as H2K secure themselves another Baron as we hit 33 minutes into this game. It is a 9,000 gold edge, 8 towers to 2. Origen are bleeding out.
They really are. They need a significant hold here with 2 inhibitors down. They need one good fight where Nahun doesn't die, but now he's got no Flash Pyro. He cannot get away the next time that happens. He hasn't got anything to get himself out of a tricky situation. The Seraph's Embrace is on cooldown. No further defensive activatable items for the Rise. He is alone, basically, unless his team are completely with him throughout the fight. Nahun has it all on his shoulders.
They're going to need the perfect engage, or rather the perfect counter engage here to try and make something happen, but Jankos is already pushing on Wisdom. If they get caught out and lose a member, it's going to be nigh impossible to defend their base here. As you can see, on 3 fronts, H2K is pushing. Baron and powered minions all the way through.
And the items have come out in response as well. QSS for Nuclear, Edge of Night comes out for Jankos. They've tried to cut through the healing with Immortal Reminder. They've got a second Executioner's Calling as well. Everything is trying to slow down the regenerative effects that Origen have across the board there. They're trying to cut through the tanks, cut through everything, and end this game as quickly as they can.
Yeah, they just don't care at this point on H2K's side. He finish off that inning. That's fine, we just got it, doesn't matter. And now it's Nexus turrets, super minions, and a desperate pushback. Satorius, poor guy, has been locked up right in front of this turret, desperately trying to save it, and Odo can just dance around him constantly. This is the end game for H2K if they can finish it. However, Che is caught. They get the ultimate out of Odoamne. Wisdom gone in, but it doesn't matter. Nuclear will finish him off. Jankos, he's gonna fall, and Nahun right after him, but it is blow for blow. 2 kills for 2. Odoamne not nailing the taunt, but they still got Hiva in the end. Nuclear finishes the job, and it's all on Tabs and Satorius to hold back this push.
Yeah, they cannot hold it back. Tabs left alive. Satorius came back to try and defend him, and Origen reached a little too far trying to kill Che in that exchange, and H2K kill the Nexus.
Game over at 35 minutes in. H2K finish the job.
Game 1 of the 2017 Spring Split for EU done, and it's H2K off to a slow start, but it's a victory at the end.
Indeed it is, and that's what matters, is to get that W on the board, but holy moly, they gave a few heart attacks at the beginning. It looked like Origen could have taken that one.
Some really cool and interesting plays out of H2K and Origen to start this out. The catches from Che were pretty good. Hiva was trying to ward time and time again, couldn't quite stay alive.
Vision game was big in the early game. It was a nice change to see. I think there were a lot more blind engages in the previous seasons, but it really was like a game of chess to watch people just moving around the map in and out of each other's junglers.
And I like the comp that Origen had. Like I love the Maokai,
especially at
the
33
Rise
minutes.
as well. But the way they were trying to, set up fights, stick around, they just never felt like they were able to get fights done. Apart from the one where Sartorius TP'd into in the mid lane, that was probably one of the better executed fights out of Origen. But still, Nathan was dead before that fight ever started. Great setup, no damage.
Yeah, it does seem that like H2K kind of like figured a way around the Rise problem. Just kill him. Can't do anything.
Yeah, just kill the Rise. That always works, I guess.
If you can pull it off. The hard part's always doing it, but H2K managed it time and time again. Now, they've taken game number 1 over Origen in this best of 3. Let's hand it over to the analyst desk to break down how it all happened.
Thank you very much, Pyra. And well, you guys talked a little bit about a slower start. It was a very interesting start. And we want to zoom in on that bottom lane straight from the start, because there were also the place where the most new members on both teams are coming from. And you wanted to take a look at the first blood, and it wouldn't be an EULCS first day without a Jankos first blood. So that was kind of to be expected.
Yeah, and the reason we want to take a look at this is because you can definitely tell that these teams are coming out of the gate quite slowly. The compositions meant that mid and top lane were kind of pretty much locked. So all the action was going around bot lane, and then we kind of see the difference between solo queue and professional play here, especially in Hiva, in how he approaches that brush, because he's going for a standard move right now. Yeah, Jankos will kind of jump into the brush, and you just got to look at Hiva right now, what he sees on his map. Che and Nuclear have been gone for quite a while. Remember, they went kind of to mid lane, back to the bot lane. Then they group with Jankos, and they're going to go over the plant here into the river brush, and that's obviously a brush you always want to ward as a support when you're pushing. Che and Nuclear, they were pushing all the time, but look at Hiva right now. He sees his AD carry pushing pretty far up. He knows 3 members are missing, so there's 3 dots on the minimap that he doesn't know where they are, and he's approaching that brush without a flash. That is a mistake you can't afford to make in professional play, and he knows that. And it's not when he shows this replay he's going to be like, oh yes, oh, that makes so much sense. He already knows that. It's just the fact that you need to consistently apply all these kind of fundamentals and basics on the pro play stage is what's going to make it hard for Origen this season.
And this is why we criticized them in terms of experience coming in. This is one of the things that we felt like that they were lacking, and this is just a clear illustration of what we were sort of expecting from Origen, where like they understand what they should be doing, but then when it comes to actually putting it into practice, they don't always fall.
Yeah. However, we also need to look at the other side, because a little bit later, H2K made similar mistakes in terms of having information but not acting accordingly.
And this is why this game was kind of on a lock, because they were very hesitant. Right here, we see Wisdom shown on a ward from H2K. Guys, we have like the H2K vision on right now, so this is what they see right now. So they see the enemy jungler entering his red squadron. He's going down to Tribush. He's even going to get flashed real quick before this plant phase. So they're completely aware that there's a Rek'Sai there. Yeah, he's allowed to tunnel in. Yes, it's surprising because someone comes out of Fog of War. But then in flash range, Nuclear should always at least try to respect flash damage, especially since the animation for the arrow starts early from tabs. So this was actually outplayable by H2K. And again, hesitation, first game of the year, but these are the ways in. You asked earlier, Shocks, how can Origen win? Well, if they exploit these kind of mistakes from H2K, because they're coming out cold.
And we're going to see a little bit later on how we saw more mistakes that could be exploited. And I feel like this is just teams getting back on the stage, getting back used to what it is to play in pro play. We talked about the fact that H2K did take a little bit longer before they actually started scrimming. And I think that as time goes on, as this series goes on, we should see slightly finer play. But we've demonstrated that both teams are a little rough around the edges very early on into the game. But things do get better for the side of H2K as we transition into this next big mid fight that happened at around the 20 minutes.
Not entirely, though, because they don't come out unscathed. We're going to take a look at this. They decide, as you said, the game comes kind of on lockdown, and H2K try and make a move mid, but push a little bit too far.
Yeah, they do just just before this play, it did end up that Karma goes down as a result of getting caught out of position. And the thing about this play is that we had a bit of a stalemate before this point. It was about 20 minutes, not very much was happened. The bot lane turret had already gone down, and basically H2K wanted to wait for Baron to come up before they could look to try and contest vision around him. They were looking to try and find a pick. They found it onto Hiva, they pressured down onto the mid lane turret, and then they just used the fact that they had the Shen, the Kha'Zix flank to set up that dive. But unfortunately, it was just ever so slight miscommunication errors where you had the backline still being collapsed upon by the Maokai, and it was just a bit of back and forth that H2K didn't properly execute the dive.
Yeah, and this game was also a good example of where it seems like really close for a while, and even the casters talking about like if Origen scale, they're fine. But one thing we have to note though is the concept of lane priority. Syndra always kind of has the push on Ryze. Their bottom lane was getting comfortable, having a little bit more pressure. Jankos, the more experienced jungler, was always stepping into Wisdom's jungle, leaving a ward here and there, revealing information. Eventually they take down the mid lane turret. Then they switch to the top side of the map, and yes, nothing happened until 20 minutes because there was nothing to kind of pivot around. The second that Baron spawns, we see again Hiva trying to get some vision in there, but there's no backup. When he looks left and right, his lanes are pushed in, which keeps him in the back of his own jungle, and that's when Origen starts struggling again, and they keep making a mistake. And I think we have a final 4 free play now that shows it again, where Origen, they're crumbling under this pressure. Nobody is doing anything really wrong. Like, Sartorius is bot, he should be there, even though he doesn't have teleport. If he's not bottom right now, he's going to get pushed in by Shen, and Odoamne will leverage that advantage. But at the same time, Origen is being greedy. They saw Zyra clear ward, they're like, okay, guys, let's kill the support. But then they forget, honestly, that
Mid is being pushed in.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have any vision on the jungler because of all the pressure that's being exerted. Like,
you know jungler's not there. You know the enemy has a Shen ultimate that he can use. You know your Maokai doesn't have teleport. Right in those moments, you're playing kind of sustain mode.
Yeah.
So your demeanor should be passive.
Yeah.
But they're playing aggressive on top side while trying to sustain on bot side, and that just doesn't work. So we need to see Origen fix that, become more of a unit. But it's very hard to do that on the pro stage.
and this transitioned into a Baron, which effectively sealed the game for H2K. And the way in which they closed it out was very clean. And I think this is more of what we're likely to see from H2K.
Definitely is from H2K, and we have to see if OG can maybe clean up some of that and get in there more in the early game as well. And they have another game to do it, possibly two. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have game 2 between Origen and H2K. Don't go anywhere.
Looking down and blocked him. In goes Jankos. Hiva is down. First blood. They want to push him off this tower. Nuclear, it's not going to live. Or is he flashing? Satori is picking up the kill. We have Shindos now, okay? I want to fight. Wisdom gone in, but it doesn't matter. Nuclear will finish him off. Jankos. No, he's going to fall, and Nathan right after him. But it is blow for blow.